It's often said that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. This common proverb reminds us that there's no such thing as objective beauty. But what about something that's considered objectively ugly or unpleasant by most people? The Resident Evil franchise is known for its grotesque imagery and use of body horror, especially in its depiction of the game's monsters, from zombies, hunters, lickers, and especially the Tyrants. But are there any redeeming or attractive qualities to these morbid monstrosities? Is it possible for a Tyrant to be both terrifying and titillating? What would happen if we rank every single Resident Evil Tyrant by their appearance? What if we were able to prove once and for all that there is beauty in ugliness? Before we take a shallow dive into the rankings, we first need to consider two things. First, how do you define handsome? And second, what the hell is even a tyrant anyway? According to the online Merriam-Webster dictionary, handsome is defined as having a pleasing or usually impressive or dignified appearance. So basically I'm using the word handsome to describe whether a tyrant is easy on the eyes or has a dapper appearance, but of course this is subjective and I'll probably forget this whole criteria anyway as the video goes on. But answering what a tyrant is a bit more complicated, but also more definitive. So, according to the Resident Evil fandom wiki, a tyrant is basically a human bioweapon made with the T-virus with the intent to be used as super soldiers on the battlefield. Also, it's important to note that tyrants are distinguished from the typical zombie because they possess certain genes relating to intelligence. But you might be asking yourself, hey, aren't Wesker and William Birkin intelligent? What about Alexia or Krauser or Lady D? Aren't they all tyrants? Well, not quite. According to a Reddit post by the user Forerunner49, tyrants are specifically designed to be BOWs with the express purpose of being used in combat, and the tyrant-like beings such as Wesker and Alexia are more akin to superhumans because they act on their own accord. In other words, a tyrant is technically a bio-weapon or super soldier. Thus, the tyrant has a predetermined objective or goal, whereas someone like Wesker kinda does whatever the hell he wants. In short, if it has no free will, it's a tyrant. If it has free will, it's not a tyrant. So this criteria leaves us with only 13 tyrants to choose from, which I will now rank from least handsome to most handsome, starting with number 13. T091 from Resident Evil Dead Aim. So if you're like me, this might be the first time you've ever seen the Tentacle Tyrant, and unfortunately, there's not too many positive things to say. It was considered a failed experiment, so it already has a lot going against it. It's not very pleasing to look at, and it's one of the only tyrants that has tentacles instead of claws. And they're not even the cool kind of tentacles, they just kinda look awkward and unimpressive, and not very dignified. And I have to address the elephant in the room. That face. I'm sorry to say, but it's just not handsome. T091 might be considered handsome compared to, I don't know, a leech, but it pains me to say that, as a tyrant, T091 rightfully belongs in last place. Number 12. Ivan from UC. Now, I have to admit, Ivan really rubs me the wrong way for some reason. I think the kids call it the ick nowadays or something, I don't know, but he just seems like he's trying way too hard to be cool, and it just comes off as cringe. It's like he's stuck in the year 1999, like he just saw The Matrix and went to school the next day wearing the most Y2K clothes he could find. He might be someone's cup of tea, but definitely not mine. So Ivan ranks this low mainly because of his poor taste in fashion. I think he could be more handsome if he dressed up more dapper, but as of now, he's not handsome at all. He still has a lot of growing up to do. Number 11. T001 from Resident Evil 0. Now this tyrant is on the verge of being kind of handsome, but he's still a little rough around the edges. But it's not his fault, he's just the prototype. He's the first one to ever even try being a tyrant, and I think we should respect him for that. And there's not too much else to say, he just comes off as a bit too rugged and unrefined to be considered handsome. He does have the height, which is a bonus for a lot of people, but I mean, come on, all tyrants are pretty tall, right? In a vacuum, T001 is not too shabby, but compared to the rest of the tyrants on the list, he just doesn't quite cut the mustard. And now we're entering the top 10, so we're really getting into some serious business here, and I think a case could be made for each of these tyrants to be higher on the list. but since I'm not putting too much thought into this whole thing and the whole thing is just kind of ridiculous, I think the following order of tyrants are sufficient for now, but let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Number 10. The Bandersnatch from Code Veronica. So this tyrant is a little rough around the edges, but in a good way I think. He's pretty handsome, but I can understand if he's not for everyone. But he does have an asymmetrical look, with one arm being massive and stretchy, and the other one, like, not even being there, so he's not very proportional. But there's still something really endearing about him that I can't quite put my finger on. Maybe it's that sad dead look in his eyes, I don't know. Number 9. Talos from one of the UC games. And at first glance you might think he's pretty cute with his little mask and armor, but this is a list of the most handsome tyrants, not the cutest tyrants. And I do admit that I ranked Talos before I saw his face, so I'm just going to ignore that. But either way, he still has some kind of allure to him. His outfit is very fitting and just accentuates his features. Sure, he's a little top heavy and disproportionate, but that's okay. He has a rocket, so it compensates for a lot of his proportionality issues. Overall, he's kinda handsome, but definitely doesn't deserve to be higher than number 9 on our list. Number 8. Now promise not to be mad, but it has to be our boy Nemesis. I know, he's one of the most iconic tyrants of the franchise, and just generally one of the best bosses in gaming. But let's admit it, he didn't get to the top because of his looks. But he does have some things going for him. For example, he's pretty tall and proportional, he has a tentacle that actually suits his appearance, and he can say things like stars with his deep voice. But he does kinda have a gummy smile and pretty bland facial features that doesn't really make him stand out. But I think my biggest issue with Nemesis is his hygiene. At least to me, it just looks like he smells bad and doesn't really take care of himself. Maybe he only showers once a week and doesn't brush his gums enough. Overall, he could be considered handsome by some people, but he still has a lot of room for a glow up in the future. Number 7. Tyrant C from Outbreak File 2. I think it's safe to say that we're getting into handsome territory with this tyrant. First of all, his clothes really fit him well. He has a neat little red suit that highlights his broad shoulders. He has horns, which are kinda cool, and his facial features are just pleasant to look at. You could say he looks a little derpy in the picture on the right, but I like to think he's just winking at you and trying to rizz you up. And there's really not too much else to say. I think most people would consider this tyrant handsome, even if he doesn't stand out the most. But this is the kind of tyrant that you can take home to mom and dad and they would be proud. Number 6. Tyrant R from Outbreak File 2. Now again, there's really not too much to say here, other than Tyrant R is pretty much the same as Tyrant C, but in a slightly better packaging. He has very strong and stoic features. It looks like he could be a model for Gucci. And even in his second form, he still retains a lot of that charm and alluring presence. Some people might find him a bit plain looking, but that jawline really is a sight to behold. Overall, a solid handsome tyrant that just slightly misses out because he lacks some unique and interesting features. Number 5. T002 from Resident Evil 1. This is the tyrant that set the beauty standard for all tyrants to come, and I think he set the bar pretty high. He just has confidence and an aura that's hard to replicate. He has that typical masculine vibe, but he also seems like he's in tune with his sensitive side. He literally wears his heart on his sleeve. He's also a pretty proportional tyrant. Even though his left arm is that large giant claw thing, I think it's well balanced with that stuff on his right thigh. His face is pretty scary, but it does have a uniqueness about it that sets him apart from Tyrant C and R. T002 is a prime example of what a handsome tyrant should look like, and what other tyrants should aspire to be. Number 4. Mr. X. So the aura with this tyrant is off the charts. If this was an aura ranking video, Mr. X would easily rank into the top 2 or number 1. He is the definition of the strong silent type. That power walk through the RPD alone just exudes confidence. It's almost like he's a runway model showing off nothing but trench coats. He has a really iconic style that's instantly recognizable. Most guys can't pull off a fedora like Mr. X can. His fashion sense alone boosts his handsomeness ranking. However, his face leaves a little something to be desired. Sure, he has a strong brow line and piercing eyes and prominent nose, but he really needs to upgrade his skincare routine. And I want to be really clear, wrinkles are perfectly fine in the right places, like those fine lines around the eyes and on the forehead. But those wrinkles on the cheek and mouth, it just looks like he smokes 100 packs a day. And the wrinkles even spiral around his face like an homage to Junji Ito. But all that said, Mr. X is a very dapper tyrant, and his handsomeness is only outshined by the cream of the crop. So now we're entering the top 3, and this is the point where the tyrants actually become unironically handsome. All these can be really interchangeable based on preference, so just know that the difference in rank between each tyrant is razor thin at this point. Number 3. Hypnos T from Survivor. When I started compiling the list of tyrants, Hypnos T was the first one I knew that could be a top contender. I even remember how handsome he was playing Survivor when it first came out. It was my first time seeing a Tyrant so human looking. I thought he was going to beat me up and steal my girlfriend. But now I can appreciate how handsome Hypnos T really is. From his smooth skin, shadowy eyes, model nose, and sharp chin. He has all the qualities of a handsome man in a Tyrant body. But I do admit that he loses some of his elegance in his later forms, and just becomes a typical Tyrant. It's really unfortunate that he loses his refined look in the process, and maybe that's why I placed him at the bottom of the top. Despite this, Hypnos T is a handsome Tyrant at his best, and at his worst. Number 2. T078 from Code Veronica. He is just an absolute unit of a Tyrant and incredibly handsome on top of that. When I imagine the archetype of Mr. Steal Your Girl and push her out of the cargo door of a moving plane, I think of T078. He has such a dignified appearance and demeanor, and a quiet confidence that showcases his effortless charisma, and this highlights his handsomeness even further. He has a very muscular build, which may not be for everybody, but it shows that he takes care of his body and eats a proper diet. And I don't want to accuse him of steroids or being on the sauce, but I mean, if you're a Tyrant, you're already kind of enhanced, so you might as well see how good you can get your physique. He has a very proportional face with a stoic expression that looks like he was carved out of marble. If you put T078 and the statue of David side by side, I don't think I'd be able to tell the difference. And there's not really too much I can add. I can't really think of any quality that would take away from how handsome he is. Number 1. Thanatos from Outbreak. Everything I said about T078 holds true for Thanatos, but to me, Thanatos has a slight edge because of his modesty. And by modesty, I mean his little black underpants that he wears. It just makes him a little bit more dignified in his appearance. And even in his second form, Thanatos isn't afraid to smile, and I think this is a huge contributing factor to his handsome appearance. Sure, he's missing an arm, but with a face like that, do you really need it? I don't think so. Thanatos has it all and more. He's confident, humble, pleasing to look at, and just an overall dapper young man. Thanatos has that classic sort of handsomeness, as well as a uniqueness and mysteriousness about him that solidifies his position at number 1. And this makes Thanatos the most handsome Resident Evil Tyrant in all of Resident Evil. So, do you agree with this list? Which Resident Evil Tyrant do you think is the most handsome? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching.